welcome returning CAC member Brian McMillan. Welcome back. Just got reappointed to the to
There
our
it is.
committee. There you go. So welcome. Rachel, would you please read the ordinance, standard ordinance?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. So I'm going to read our ordinance language. This meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with emergency ordinance number 20-A16, an emergency ordinance to restrict the activity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The committee members who are electronically present at this meeting are Coker, Marty Meth, Nancy Hunt, Rick Seaman, Martha Davis, Brian McMillan, Judy Schluchel, Lee Condor, Peter Thompson, Todd Cohn, and Tom Paoletti. The persons responsible for receiving public comment are the Places29 Rio Community Advisory Committee. The opportunities for public to access and participate in the electronic meeting are posted on the Albemarle County calendar. And staff present this evening are myself, Rachel Falkenstein, and Carolyn Schaefer. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so the first order of business is to approve the meeting minutes from our December 10th meeting. Does anybody have, and Nicole, thank you, joined us, so we have everybody on the committee.
I move to approve the December 10 meeting minutes as they are.
Any comments just before we go? Judy? Unmute yourself, Judy, please.
Okay, under these, I didn't print it out, but it said the resolution for FBC being form-based code was approved, but it was the resolution to commend Rachel on her work. So there were perhaps a couple words that were left out.
We approved the resolution, though. The resolution was approved. Whatever it said in there is something different. So that's an accurate statement, Judy.
Okay, but I thought that that was referring to the resolution.
I'm just looking at the new business. Second and approved with 7 votes and 2 abstentions is what it says.
It said form-based code, but wasn't it the resolution?
On form-based code.
But it was the resolution to commend.
I'd have to go back and look at the very specific words to it.
Okay, I thought it was to commend Rachel on her work.
It was
I agree.
Huh?
I agree. That's what the resolution was about.
Right.
It wasn't just to accept form-based code, but it was a resolution to commend Rachel on her work.
Right.
Yeah, I was going to look back at the exact title just to be clear about it.
Okay.
That's all. I'm not arguing about it.
Yeah.
See
Yeah.
what it said. I'll take a second. Okay, so it's a form-based code resolution and appreciation. Okay, I will correct that.
Okay, sounds
Okay.
good. Thanks.
With that, do I have a second on the minutes? Somebody?
Aye.
Thank you. Okay, so all in favor, just raise your hand, please. Any? Okay,
I'm going to abstain.
yeah, Brian will abstain. Okay,
I
So it's
suppose
passed.
we should abstain as well. I was
right. Yeah, I understood that already. Okay. So the next item in our agenda is officer elections. We have 3 positions: chair, vice chair, and secretary. So, so the Lockwood, so let's do chair first. Somebody want to nominate Nancy?
I cheerfully nominate Marty Meth.
Thank you. Is there anybody?
Can I second that?
Thank you. Anybody else?
Third,
Okay. Nobody wants this. So we have to, all in favor then? Say, please raise your
Yeah,
hand.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, John, Marty.
So the next position is vice chair. Last time was Lee.
I would nominate Rick.
Okay,
Oh,
anybody else before we?
I have to say, I've got, I don't think a little too many irons in the fire right now to do that. Thank you for the nomination.
Yeah, I'm willing to continue serving in that capacity.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, all in favor of Lee, please raise your hand. Okay. The third position is secretary. Would anybody like to relieve? Tom's been doing this for so many years already. I don't remember, 2, 3 years. Would anybody like to volunteer for a year? Relieve Tom?
Well, I'll volunteer to continue, but my term ends in September. Well, mine end in August. Either August or September is my last. So someone will have to take it over after that.
Okay, please. Okay, all in favor of Tom till September, and then we'll figure you out after September.
Figure it out later.
Right, thank you. Okay, that was easy. Okay, so the next item on our agenda is the Rio Corridor Planning Advisory Group. I'm not sure that's the exact title, Rachel, but that's what we're calling it. I sent everybody a copy of some of the terms of, I think they're really draft terms, Rachel? Yes, no?
That's correct. I would call them just the purpose and the role.
Right.
Their name, oh yeah, we haven't figured that out. Maybe that can be the first order of the group.
So did everybody have a chance? I can put it up on the screen if you'd like, just to take a quick look at it for a second. And then I'll ask for who would like to volunteer. Oh, I got a lot of stuff up, God. Yeah,
I've read it and I would like to.
that's the wrong one. I'm sorry. That's the, yes, Lee, I heard you say.
Yeah, I would like to volunteer.
Anybody else?
I would
Nicole?
like to volunteer Tom. I recognize that he might or might not be reappointed, but I feel quite strongly that he's served this committee and understands the issues that we're facing, and I think he could represent us quite well to serve.
Okay, so I have Lee, Tom, Nicole. Did I see you raise your hand? I'm sorry. I've just been playing around with this. I apologize.
Yes, yeah, that'd be great. I
Okay.
second Tom as well. He'd be great as well.
So did you all read it? So 2 things I'd like to point out on it is that the person who represents us as the chair is really doing this on behalf of our organization, the CAC. It's not just your personal opinion. And you've got to be able to participate in up to 5 meetings between March and November 2021.
Just a small comment. I will probably be off by the end of August, possibly September, and I cannot be reappointed. I'm already on my 2nd term. And I just lost video.
I think that since I'm in my 3rd term, it's supposed to be, but you can be reappointed if the Ned chooses to.
Okay.
So it's not absolute. You don't get off the hook that easily.
Yeah, there are a number of people.
I think
know.
Audrey one or third term as well.
And I know somebody in another committee who's on her 4th term, so there's not,
Oh, okay.
yeah. So I wouldn't let that dissuade you at all. And we'll remember to get your application in early.
Marty, is this just one person or is there multiple people?
No, one person.
Okay, I think I second Tom and I withdraw. I think Tom would be great.
Yeah. Okay, so we have 2 people who are running for this. We can have a show of hands for each person. I think that would be an easy way to do it. Let's try that. Otherwise, I'll go through a roll call. So all in favor, Lee spoke first. In favor of Lee, raise your hand. So I got 1, 2. All in favor of Tom? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I saw, Tom, you are hereby appointed to our, as our representative to the advisory group. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Rachel, I'm going to turn the floor over to you next.
Okay, let me get my screen ready. And I will remind everyone that everyone on the CAC will definitely have an opportunity to participate on the RIO plan. So that will be coming, and we'll keep you all posted on how that is progressing as it moves along. I also got an email from Ned about 5 minutes ago, and the board is going into closed session. They have a couple of items on closed session that they have to discuss. So he's not sure what time he will come, but he just wanted me to let the group know. So sharing that with you all. And let me get my in full screen mode. So presentation is, or tonight's kind of discussion is about land use specific to the Places 29 master plan mentioned at our last meeting. As we have availability on our agenda, we will spend time through the Places 29 master plan, and I'll share some information on it and then open up for discussion, questions, feedback. If you read along in the plan and you find things that you think we should focus on when we get to the Places 29 master plan update, this is a time you can share that. Not to say that you won't have another opportunity, but if you notice things and want to share, I'm here to that information, and I'll take it. So I'm just going to go through a brief overview of land use generally, and like how we use it as the county, how staff, how our decision makers use the land use plan. And then I'm going to go through the particulars of kind of our land use categories that we use in Places 29 master plan. So I plan to keep this informal. If you want to ask a question, please feel free. You can or put your hand up and I'll pause and call on you. I think we have 30 minutes dedicated to this item though, and I think I have about 15 minutes of presentation. So real briefly, just a refresher for most of you. I know we have some new members as well. What is land use? What do we mean when we say land use? So the county has a comprehensive plan. It establishes a long-term vision for the community. And as part of the comprehensive plan, there are master plans and small area plans. And each development area of the county has a master plan. We have one small area plan, and you all are lucky to have that in your area, the RIO 29 plan. But the master plan establishes kind of policies and recommendations around how property and land should be used in the county. So as I said, each one has each development area has a master plan. Your all is Places 29 master plan, and it was adopted in about 10 years ago. And it also includes the RIO 29 small area plan. So it's kind of a nesting effect. You have the comprehensive plan, and then within that is the master plan, and then encompassed within that is the small area plan. And there's also a tool called zoning, regulatory tool. So land use is the policy, but zoning is the regulatory tool, and it carries the force of law. So it can group land. Typically it's used to group land into different types of categories or areas. And the intent is health, safety, and welfare. And that's to kind of protect the community and folks who live there, and as the way we develop the land. So as I said, the zoning ordinance is what can be done by law, and it's a term you'll hear staff use frequently, is what can be done by right. So you already have this set of rules of what can be done on the property today. So the land use and the zoning, especially in Albemarle County, often do not line up. So the land use is kind of our future vision. This is a 20-year plan for how we'd like to see that land used into the future. Zoning is what can be done right now, and they don't always match. Here's a side-by-side map. You can see the land use and the zoning are broken up into different categories, and they're not always the same. So how do we use the future land use plan? If it's not law, it's not zoning, so we have a development process in Albemarle County, a development review process, and you all are part of that process as our longer time members are aware, when it comes to a legislative review. So that means if someone would like to change something on their property, say it might be zoned for a lower density residential and they would like to come in for residential, that might be a bit higher density and they have to change their zoning, they have to go through a rezoning process. And that is what is termed legislative review slide. And part of that process is community engagement. They have a community meeting with the CAC. After that step, they'll go to the Planning Commission and the board will have ultimate decision about approval or denial of that request. And so we use land use in the master plan, the property's designated land use, to make a recommendation of whether or not the board should approve the rezoning request in our legislative review. So we review as staff these applications as they come in. We also have other agencies work with us, such as VDOT, some of our utility servers to make sure that there is capacity for what the request is. And then the Planning Commission and the board review it, and the board ultimate decision. And so the future land use designation is a key factor in the staff report that we send to the Planning Commission and the board to make a recommendation on whether or not the legislative review should be approved. And so now I'm going to get into kind of what land use is and what the different land use categories are within the Places 29 master plan. So the master plan, it's a large document, as I'm sure if you've opened it, you've noticed Places 29 is our longest master plan. It's also our biggest development area. And it has several chapters within it covering different topics. And one of those is a future land use plan. But it also has transportation, parks and green systems, information and conditions, and then a list of projects as well. But today we're just going to focus on this land use piece. So the Places 29 area, if you've flipped through the master plan, it's actually, the map is have 2 separate pages because it's such a large area. This is the southern portion of Places 29, where the Rio district is. To orient you, here's Rio Road here. Hopefully you can see my cursor here. Here's 29. Yep. And so this is your land use plan. It's broken up into different colors representing different land uses, and you can see roads and parcels on here. So each parcel has its own designated land use. And then there are these categories down at the bottom giving the key of what these different land uses are. So what I'm going to go do now is go through each one. And then at the end, I'm going to talk about how this was adopted in 2011, and we have updated our land use approach a little bit since this time and are trying to bring some consistency across all of the county's master plans so that it's easier for the community to understand and staff to implement. And I see Marty, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. Are the land use designations that you're going to talk about common across all the definitions, common across all the development areas?
Well, they're not current. That is a goal of staff. So an example is this orange category, city residential, has a different meaning in Places 29 as it does in Crozet.
Thank you.
We are trying to bring consistency and update each of the master plans. And we've actually started using some different terminology to talk about our centers. Because again, that was another term we were seeing used differently in each of our master plans. So as we go through and update them, we're trying to apply kind of a consistent approach. So right now they're not, but our goal is to have them more consistent moving forward. Also, the Rio 29 small area plan, that has a little bit different land use approach within it, and I'll talk about that in the presentation as well. That's kind of why it's kind of hatched out on this map. So if you read through the pages that or have flipped through the master plan, you'll are a couple of tables about land use within the plan. And this one talks about land uses within centers, and the uptown is what it's called. It's a specific area off of Airport Road. It's a center type. And it goes through several different kind of uses and topics and talks about whether or not these uses are recommended or permitted within each center type. It gives you information, guidance around what the expected density would be, what some expected building footprint sizes would be. So I won't go into every single bullet on here, but just know it's there, and it's a good way. It's a good quick way to see, what is meant by each of these uses. So again, these are within the centers. And so there are 4 different center types within Rio 29. Here's a summary of each, but I think the best way, at least for me anyway, as a planner, for me to think about centers is think about what do they look like? What would a neighborhood center kind of look like? So I have a couple of slides just showing different types of centers. So the one on the left would be your smallest center type, a neighborhood service center. Would be mostly residential, but a couple just neighborhood serving types of uses. This one on the left is Riverside Village in Pantops. It's got a couple small shops, but up top is residential. Excuse me. The type is a community center. And this is Old Trail Village in Crozet. A little bit bigger of a scale if you think about it compared to Riverside Village. So we're going scale as we go through each of these. The next center type is a town center. There are no town centers within Places 29, but this is downtown Crozet. The next type is as designated in Places 29, I believe it's called a regional center. And that's your bottom left screen. That's your largest center type. I think it's also similar to the Uptown Center. And then an urban center is this center type here on the right-hand side. And that's a new center typology that we're applying to master plans as we go to Bethesda, Maryland. Okay, so the next kind of table you'll get to if you're going through your land use tables at the end of that chapter 4 is just your general land use table. And this is really similar. It breaks up each of your land use types and it gives you recommendations in each row for things like what's the residential density, are commercial uses allowed, what types of commercial uses are recommended. So it's a good quick reference if you're trying to just quickly understand, what's recommended for each of these land uses. And it's actually 2 pages. So this one table covers 2 pages in the master plan because it's just a lot of content to get into. So I'm going to go through each kind of use type because I think this is probably the content you all will kind of you'll use the most as you have a community meeting coming before you, for instance, and it's a certain land use designation, such as urban mixed use, and we'll talk through kind of what each one of these means. So urban mixed use, this is density recommendation of 3 to 34 units. Again, it's mixed use, so you have a residential component and commercial components. And the master plan sets recommendations for kind of minimum it really expects that it is mixed use. So it has a minimum recommendation for kind of each type of use within this one land use category. So you would expect to see portions of this development type be residential, be retail, portions be office. There are also some form recommendations about how large different buildings should be. And this is really, I think, aimed at steering this use category away from large box retail type of uses. So setting a maximum building footprint. That's not the full square footage, but just the footprint of the building, and the ground story footprint if it's multiple stories. And so some recommendations of kind of urban mixed use forms throughout the county. Stonefield is an example of an urban development. So these are some pictures of Stonefield. I believe this one is up in Hollymead Town Center on the top right. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Stonefield as well. Sorry, I should have put captions on these pictures. So the next is urban density residential. This is that orange category that I was pointing out. The density recommendation for urban density is 6 to 34 units per acre. I see Nancy, you have a hand up.
Sorry, can't figure out how to unmute. So this orange section to me looks like what would cover the corner across from K-Tech. Am I reading the map correctly?
That's correct.
Thank you.
So as I was saying, density of 6 to 34, really want to see more than one housing type. So try and get kind of mixed income communities, mixed housing types. And then some secondary land uses would be permissible in this category, but smaller footprints than you would see in that urban mixed use category. So this would be more focused on those neighborhood serving kind of retail or service type of uses. Again, there's some uses that are not permitted that most folks don't want to live next to certain types of uses. So those are listed out as well within this category. And then here's some examples. These are Hollymead Town Center. This is, I think it's northwest of Target. There's a development up there. I'm blanking on the name. And then some townhomes in Hollymead Town Center. So smaller kind of footprint apartments would be acceptable, or kind of townhomes or even single families would be appropriate in this category. And then neighborhood density residential. So stepping down in density and scale is the yellow category that covers a lot of your area, a lot of some of the neighborhoods like Delora, and some of those neighborhoods north of Rio are this category. Recommends 3 to 6 units per acre. Again, still trying to encourage different housing developments of this designation. But smaller, again, recommended, smaller heights. This is where you see a lot of in the county are urban neighborhood density residential. Nicole, hand up.
Yeah, I was just curious, is there guidance on how the county interprets different housing types? And how?
Yeah, it's not well defined, but the way we've interpreted it is single family detached, single family attached, or townhomes, and then multifamily, and multifamily would be apartments. We have not made the interpretation that I'm aware of that if you have a studio apartment and a 2-bedroom apartment in the same building, that's still viewed as this one housing type, the way it's been interpreted. But it is not well defined. And I think that's a great point. That's something we could probably do a better job of, as we update our plans and the larger comp plan. So some examples of housing type, forest lakes. So, a lot of single family here. These are all either designated neighborhood density or planned development. So onto our commercial. So those were our main residential designations. So moving on to commercial, we have a mixed use category, and we'll be stepping intensity same way we did with residential. So this is our higher intensity mixed use category that's focused most on, seeing more commercial than residential within this category. Larger footprints are appropriate here. So this might be where you see some of that big box development happen, as well as, auto-oriented types of uses. But pretty broad, and in any pretty broad strokes of commercial uses would be recommended in this category. And anything short of like manufacturing and warehousing types uses. So here are a couple examples. This is just a few shopping centers up 29, and I did a bad job of putting labels, so I can't remember which ones they are. But again, the type of auto-oriented types of uses are what we see a lot of in this category. And then office R&D flex light industrial. This is a mouthful, but it's really those employment types of uses is a good way to think of this, where you have office or even some manufacturing and light industrial types of uses. There are some form recommendations wanting to still see kind of a cap on this so that it doesn't become like a heavy manufacturing factory types of situation. It's more focused on those employment generating uses that are more compatible with surrounding uses in our development area where we have a lot of people living within a region. So that's kind of the intent of this use. Residential is listed as a secondary use here, and we've heard that these types of uses have kind of evolved over probably the lifetime of this plan, and as it was being written, we're seeing more popular. People want to live near where they work, and so residential is allowable in this category for that reason. It's popular for people to be able to live in an apartment and have a job nearby that they can walk to. And these uses are more technology focused now than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. So the impacts might not be what they were previously with an industrial type of use. Again, heavy manufacturing is still not recommended in this use because we want to have it in our development areas near where a lot of people are living. So examples of this use are the University Foundation Research Park up north of 29, and they are very interested in pursuing residential on their property. In the future, it's something we have to look at through a master plan lens, but it is something that they said there is a high demand for. They have a lot of research development types of uses in the research, and people who work there say they'd love to live nearby. So that research park is still building out. And then this is the darker purple category on the map. This is focused more on those industrial uses and less on the kind of office R&D, though that's still appropriate here. And we've heard from our economic development department that these uses are becoming harder and harder to distinguish between what is industrial versus what is an R&D use. So just trying to maintain that flexibility, understand that these uses evolve over time. And this is up near the airport. There is some light industrial designation, and this is the Crutchfield. I forget the name of it, but that's where they have a lot of storage and warehousing for their retail business. And then heavy industrial, this is the industrial use that has kind of the most impact of those kind of three categories that I went through. Manufacturing types of uses that might have a little bit more impacts on surrounding uses would be appropriate here. And we only have one area in Places 29, this designation, and it is off of Northside Drive, recycling facility, heavy recycling. It's household recycling, but like construction debris recycling type of use. And then lastly, it's kind of not say it's the least important, maybe it's the most important to some of you all, is the open space category. It's shown as green on your master plan. And this is one category that we've been kind of changing our approach to as we update master plans. Instead of a broad stroke of open space, we've been breaking this category up to public parks and then green systems and open space. So your green systems and open space would be like a private HOA has some property they keep in open space. We see that a lot. Or a stream buffer or floodplain. And then parks are obviously land designated existing or future parks. But Places 29 has them all kind of shown as this open space category right now. But when we get to the update, we will take a fresh look at that. And here are just some pictures of what types of uses you would see in the open space. Here's Old Mills Trail on the left, and then Dardentown Park is on the right. And then lastly, I will talk about land use in Rio 29. So this is an area that's kind of carved out on that map that I pointed out earlier, and it's got this gray hatching on it because the land use approach in Rio 29 is quite different than the rest of the master plan area. As you know, if you've been on the committee for a while, it's a different approach to land use that's focused more on form and less on use. And so this Rio 29 small area plan has these place types identified: the urban core, flex, edge is shown on this map. So here's 29, and here's Rio core in the urban core in the middle. The flex is kind of the largest area in white, and then the blue are our edge areas. And there's a table in that plan as well that talks about use. The uses, if you'll see, are very different in that pretty much everything is allowed with a few exceptions. So these are all of the allowable uses listed here. And I would say the kind of strongest language here in the core is that they want, the plan wants active uses on the ground floor, and the active uses meaning like commercial, retail, any uses that are going to have foot traffic coming and going. That's recommended for the ground floor there. So maybe less of your residential on the ground floor in the core. And then edge, there are a couple of things that are not recommended, light industrial. They're not encouraged there, but there is some language that it could be appropriate in certain circumstances. It can be demonstrated that there would be no, that edge area is right next to residential neighborhoods. And so I've touched on this a little, just quickly show you how we've been doing land use in our most recent plan updates. We just completed we completed the Pantops master plan and we updating Crozet master plan, and we are changing our categories just a little bit. So we have different center types, and instead of this being like a separate land use table where we talk about centers as totally different land uses, it's more of a additional guidance layer, I would say. So if an area is within a center, there's some additional guidance about land use there, but it's not completely separate from maybe the underlying land use. So it's a little bit different of approach, but trying to bring some consistency across the county and how we think about these centers. And I would say most important for centers is transportation and how we think about our transit system. And this designation helps us be more across the whole county transit. And then here's our updated land use plan. You see a lot of these categories are still there. We still have the 2 residential categories. Mixed use, that's a new category that is 9, Places 29. And then the part that I was talking about, we have broken that out into 2 categories. But we've added an additional kind of layer of guidance about kind of form and massing that's a little more detailed than is in Places 29 right now. So as we look to update Places 29, we'll probably bring this approach forward when we update your plan. Again, this is another page from Pantops showing kind of some of that form guidance. We did a couple of SketchUp kind of models around like what do these forms look like, and you can see a clearly kind of stepped up intensity in development among each of these kind of types of land uses. And I believe that is all. So I'm going to stop sharing and ask if there's any questions, feedback, discussion, anything else you would like to share.
I'll ask a question while everybody's thinking, and then Judy, I'll ask a question, then we'll go to Judy. When you pick out an area and for a designation, you mentioned it for small area plan about transportation. How about the other areas, the urban mixed use and urban density residential? Is there criteria for transportation associated with those particular designations?
There is not in the master plan, I would say, but not to say there's not like another level of planning that happens around transit and transportation planning. Like we see with when we go through development review, they have development review above a certain that will generate a certain level of traffic. They have to do a traffic impact analysis and look at how proposed development will impact our transportation system. So there is another level of transportation planning that kind of happens, but it's not really captured within the plan.
Okay, Judy, please.
Yeah, I realize that we have to plan for the future, but you were talking about having active participants, such as some kind of commercial along with the residential. How are you taking into effect the pandemic? And that as every day we hear about more and more businesses in our area that are closing versus people that want to come in and start a business. So, I mean, I realize that we can't just stay in this mode, but we need to look to the future. But are you planning for this?
So that's a great point. I think we certainly didn't anticipate COVID-19 when we were doing the Rio 29 plan, but we were intentional about flexibility with that plan. And that's why we weren't really prescriptive about you need 5% retail and 25% office. I think you see some of that. And I think it's a little bit, it can be a little bit rigid. We've heard that feedback from some developers who've tried to work in the county. So we were intentional about flexibility. And when we active ground floor uses, we didn't say retail. We intentionally didn't say retail. I think retail was already on a decline when we were doing the small area plan. And I think COVID has pushed that even a little bit further even. So it's more about uses that have a public component. So it could be any number of things. It could be a museum, a library, a service type of use. It could be a lobby of a hotel or of a residential use that's open to the public. So we were intentional about that piece and wanting to make sure we were flexible for whatever unpredictable thing could come along in the lifetime of the plan.
Okay, I guess flexibility is going to be the key word.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Other questions? So Lee, please.
As far as the alignment between the zoning ordinance and the plan, right now the county uses that as leverage. So if somebody wants to build something that is in the land use plan, but it isn't zoned for that, then they have to apply for a special exception. And that gives the county then an opportunity to impose conditions on the development as opposed to it being by right, in which case all it needs to meet is the usual, stormwater runoff and various environmental things. But is that the intention to continue that, or will the zoning ordinance be updated at some point to more closely align with the land use plan?
Yeah, good question. We're actually look at doing that work. The Community Development Department does a work program every year with our Board of Supervisors where we kind of check in with them for what major projects we should take on in the coming year or two. And that is on our work program to do a zoning update. But first, we're planning to do a comprehensive plan update to make sure, kind of check in with the community. Hey, are these things still important to you? Is this the right direction we should be going before we take that big leap of the zoning ordinance update? So actually next week, I am going to the board to check in on a scope for a comprehensive plan project. And then following on the heels of that, the plan would be to update the zoning ordinance to match.
So one sore point has always been the density, the wide range of density associated with the urban mixed use and the urban density residential. Is that you think that will change at some point, be redefined into separate categories?
I do think we'll look at that. We actually are in the process of, as we update the Crozet master plan, developing a new category called middle density residential. Nothing has been, approved by the board yet. We're still in kind of the community engagement phase of that. But that's been something that staff has recommended, and we'll see what the board thinks about that. But we've heard that feedback, not just from you all, but from other parts of the community that range is too wide.
Right. Tom?
Yes, you said making zoning changes. Will each zoning change for property have to go through the board for approval? I was thinking about the Wetzel property. I mean, right now it's zoned, I think, R4, but then the plan has it for mixed residential density. Would a change like that without a plan by some developer have to go through the board of supervisors first?
So oftentimes what you'll see is we'll update a land use plan and then right after that follow on with an updated zoning map to match the land use plan. I don't know that that's the route we're going to take as a community, but we have a zoning ordinance from 1980 that is over 40 years old at this point, and it is due for an update. There's just some problematic issues in it, aside from the mismatch of land use and zoning that just are causing some issues with the way development is done today. So I don't know what zoning map updates will happen after our comp plan. We know we need to change our ordinance, but whether or not the map will be updated or not, we just don't know. We'll have to do a lot of outreach and engagement with the community, with decision makers on that. So I can't answer your question if the Wetzel property, for instance, will have a new zoning after this. It's just way too early on in the process for us to kind of speculate about that. And the timeline for this, just so you all kind of know and can watch for what's coming, we're looking at a 3-year comprehensive plan update process. So it's a long process. It goes slowly. There's a lot of engagement involved in it. And then after that, we would look at a zoning ordinance update. So a couple years into the future.
Nancy?
I recognize we don't have form-based code yet, but we're moving along. And in fact, the county email did send out a request for comment on your current draft, which I will try to read through shortly. How far off is what the optional form-based code from the current land use plan? I think in some cases it's probably pretty different, but once you have the form-based code, to sort of get to Lee's question, then it's not an issue of zoning. It's all as long as you follow the rules, if that is what you opt to do. Am I right on that?
That's the way the form-based code is currently structured, and assuming it's approved in a couple months, that's how that process will work.
So just to be clear, we got a notice from the county that there's going to be a hearing at the planning board on form-based code 216 and February 16th, and the board on March 17th.
That's correct. And I would say that board date is tentative because we'll have to wait and see if the planning commission goes really well and we don't have to make any changes. We'll keep the March board date. If we have to go back and make significant changes after the planning commission, that will probably be pushed, but I'll keep you all posted on that.
So let me ask you just to clarify, if the form-based code is approved, it still has some application with respect to density or to respect to land use. I'm honestly unclear, because in terms of, or is it just free flow? Once you get form-based code, there is no zoning constraint at all? Somebody could build an industrial, so Nancy shaking her head no. So what's the constraint on the form-based code?
So form-based code is zoning. So form-based, the zoning district for Rio 29, but the way it's structured is it's an overlay zoning. So a little bit complex. The existing zoning will remain. If property want to, they can opt into the form-based code and develop under all of the rules in the form-based code. And that will be by right. So staff could approve that if they meet all of the rules. But there are some restrictions to use, like heavy manufacturing is not an allowable use in the form-based code. If there is a light industrial type of use, there's an engineer's report that would be required to make sure that there wouldn't be, issues with people living nearby with noise or sound or traffic, things like that. So it's not an anything goes district, but it is a little bit, it is quite a bit more flexible about use than our current zoning.
So we are basically, Rio is basically a redevelopment area by and large, right? As opposed to new development. So,
It's mostly built out. There are a couple vacancies in Rio, but most of it's built out.
So let's take the Wetzel property, which a lot of us are familiar with. With a form-based code, how would that work on that single property, which is 27 acres? So it's got a constraint, it has to have a certain area. Nancy's shaking her head no, but.
Yeah, it's just the current form-based code is just Rio 29. So it's just
No, I understand that.
Around the Rio 29 intersection that were shown on that map in gray.
How about if it becomes more of a county-wide approval, or does it have to be approved by the board on each specific area?
So the board has to approve any change to the zoning map. We are bringing before them in March a map that shows all these parcels around Rio 29 that would have this new zoning overlay applied. And if they approve it, it will just apply to that area. If any the board directs us or a property owner wants to change the zoning, it has to go through the full process. It has to have public hearings, planning commission, board approval, all of those steps.
Okay. Other questions, I should. Okay. So, thank you, Rachel. That was good. So we don't have, Dan is not here. Rachel, you want to maybe just fill us in briefly on the study, the corridor plan study? Where does it stand?
I don't have much new to report right now. We're still doing the kind of pre-planning work, but we have a meeting with the consultant team next week to plan our first kind of kickoff event, which will happen. We don't have a date yet. It'll either be end of February or early March. So I'll keep you all posted when that information is available.
One point I was going to say, you listed groups where you're going to maybe make a presentation. Both Lee and I are on the CTAC, and I think it would be useful at some point when you get, maybe halfway through the study or some point, because there are a lot of knowledgeable people on the CTAC, and I think you'd get a lot of good feedback if you brief them as well.
Sure. Thanks for the suggestion.
Okay. So do you have anything else in terms of liaison? Have we taken off? You lost your
Well, I
voice?
was gonna just mention what we already talked about, the form-based code public hearing. It's on the 16th of February for the Planning Commission, and there was an email that went around that had a copy of the draft and a feedback form for people to share feedback. If you're interested, feel free to reach out, any of you, if you didn't get that. I can send you the information.
Okay. So we have, I'm going to move on then to the last item, other business. So the watch list, and maybe Ned will join us. If
Marty,
Ned,
I think you missed Nicole.
oh, I'm sorry, Nicole, go ahead.
I just want to mention, I know the staff of VDOT has recommended a few, I don't know if this was talked about earlier, a few projects to fund for transportation improvements in the area, right? And one of them was the roundabout at John Werner and Rio.
Yes.
Rio East as it continues, it forks off. So I think that's a pretty big thing for the area. So I don't know, just.
Yeah, I'm sure Ned would mention it, but let me tell you, both Lee and I heard the briefing on it. It was the 5th highest rated smart scale out of 13 projects. And the county actually, am I stealing Ned's thunder? County did a smart thing this year, put $1 million in each of their submissions, and that helped get money. And there was a lot of money thanks to an increase in the taxes on gasoline when it all went back into the state. So the county did very well this year in getting a number of smart scale projects. So let me go on to the list. If we don't, if Ned can't make it, which is unlikely, then I think, how would you suggest we give him topics for the town meeting, Rachel? Maybe you mail it to Rachel, and then you could forward them all at once. I hate to have a whole bunch of, or mail them to me and I'll forward them all to Ned. If you have suggested topics, I know Tom has one.
I do.
And you have so why don't you all, if Ned can't make it tonight, if you mail it to me, I will then forward it all in one email back to him. I think that would be the easiest than sending him a number of different emails. Okay.
I did just get an email from Ned. He said they may be another 30 or 45 minutes, so he probably won't make it.
Right. So if you have ideas for a topic, because I think he's shooting for February, in the next week or so, if you send me an email with what topics you'd like to suggest to him to address in his town hall for the area. I don't think, Nicole, I don't remember, you weren't at the last meeting, but Ned had mentioned that he was going to have a town hall in February and was looking for topics of interest that he might address in the community. Okay. Okay, so let me just go briefly over the watch list, and then I have the schedule that I want to talk to you for a second about for next year, and then we can close up shop. So I am going to share my screen again. Where is my share my screen? Let's try that. So I don't want to spend a lot of time, but if anybody has changes, so I'm just going to flash each one on, each of the, let's see. There we go. Let's see if I can not lose everybody in this process. Okay. So if anybody has any changes, Rick or so I know you haven't seen this in a long time. So really, I don't have anything particular. Rick, I'm just gonna go briefly.
I'm just taking a quick look at this. No, I think, but I do think that the one that's now onto the watch list that Nicole just mentioned is this idea of moving forward with the potential roundabout.
Well, roundabouts are on here, so it's all right. I mean, I think we had that covered. I thought about that.
Yep.
I really, if there's something new that we want to really bring to Ned's attention, that's really the issue. So let me go down one.
Yeah, with ours, it's fine.
Yeah, okay. Judy, Peter, Lee. I know this is a long list. Is anything new, really? Okay.
Let's see. Oh, on number 12, I just got an email actually from Andy about the concerns about the traffic coming from the RST development, which is going to be a little bit south of Hollymead. They have redone their submittal. And now it's going to, he didn't give me a complete number, but I asked him a number of questions, but just to let you know that that original plan has been changed.
Okay.
You know, stay tuned.
Is
Stay
that you
tuned.
still have some concerns? So keep it on the list. That's what you're saying.
Right. Stay tuned.
Okay. This is, I added Marty Davis. Of course, she hasn't really seen this, so because she lives in Carsbrook. I hope I spelled that right. Is there anything specific you would like to add, subtract from the list? Remember?
I do.
Yes, Audrey.
I am increasingly concerned about homelessness in the area. And I know there's a plan to redevelop Knights Inn as a homeless housing. Specifically, I'm concerned about increased begging on the intersection of Woodbrook and 29 and the use of the previous Allen property as a resting place. It is so littered. It is just awful. I'm worried about injury. I'm worried about the littering on that property. Because it's an entrance corridor and a major business intersection, it seems we should make that nice so people want to come to our area and do business and develop the area. I made a call to Allen, and they are hedgy about who owns that property. So I made a complaint to the county about cleaning it up. Maybe it's something we should watch to see if that improves.
Okay, I will definitely add both of those to the list. So you think there's on Woodward and 29, you're seeing more homeless people there, Audrey?
Yeah, a great deal of begging, littering in the middle of the intersection,
Okay.
movement of people across the intersection so they can beg, and increased littering at the former Allen
I got
property.
Yeah, okay.
And I think it's something that should be solved by residents in that area and maybe not elevated to a region-wide problem, but and it may resolve as COVID resolves, but I doubt it. I just think it's something we should watch if it doesn't resolve.
Okay.
Marty?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually going to bring that up too, but I think maybe we want to put it on the 29 corridor list, like the Nancy's.
Mhm.
But the litter has just been really bad in our intersection lately, and it doesn't look like VDOT's really been cleaning it up at all. And definitely that old Allen. I'm glad Audrey brought it up because I was going to bring it up too.
That's
Okay.
a private property. Allen
Yeah.
is private, and it was fine as long as they had their law firm there. But since they're gone, it's not. And it's very dark. I think camping, I haven't seen camping per se, but I suspect there may be camping in the back there. It's very quiet.
I think they might be living in the shed that's there, or
Yeah,
even in the
yeah.
building.
Yeah.
And the before I forgot to reapply, I was going to bring up again the weeds and stuff on 29. I mean, my wife's pointed it out a couple times, and exactly what Audrey just said. This is the entrance corridor for Charlottesville and Albemarle, and we want Rio to be like, this sort of downtown Albemarle, and the weeds along the brand new, underpass and everything there, and the litter in our intersection, and sometimes it's just stuff falling off trucks that isn't getting picked up.
It extends up Hilton Drive too, between Yamansky and Walmart. It's just awful. This is not downtown New York City.
Yeah.
Okay. So the weeds are on 29. I'm trying to visualize where they are, Brian.
Go under Rio. I mean, they're dead right now, but early in the year, there were like trees growing up between the concrete and the
I
walls.
think Ned was under the impression that that was being taken care of. So I'll mention it again, but we'll wait till spring, take a good hard look at it.
Yeah, I thought he said it wasn't budgeted or something.
No, I think afterwards he said it was something. We'll
Yeah.
get to it, okay?
May I add to that? The one other issue is the traffic backup from Woodbrook Drive onto 29 North. People are entering Woodbrook towards Lowe's and are lining up to go through the chicken place, and it's coming out onto 29 North. You sometimes can't get through the intersection, and I have called the police about it, but it's not resolving. And I don't know if anybody is taking any action about that, but it's a major source of congestion, and that's a really bad intersection there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what we're gonna do about that, but I agree.
You've seen it
I mean,
too, Brian?
it's a pandemic problem. They can't go in the building, so
Yeah.
the drive-through. I mean, Chick-fil-A is a very successful business model.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I just was at Lowe's today. I went past there. I was not any big, yesterday, I should say. There was not a big problem when I went. Is this at a certain time? It's probably at lunchtime.
Yeah,
It is.
time dependent.
It is at lunchtime. And I observed it from the dollar store parking lot while I was somebody to do some shopping, and I was absolutely horrified.
Okay.
It's an accident waiting to be happening. It's a death.
Can I finish, please?
Death
Audrey?
waiting to happen.
The problem is that they are coming off of 29 around the corner and then going right into Chickafill. It's not a very, obviously, takeout window is right there. And so the traffic backs all the way back down and around 29. If you had the traffic go up to the light, or there's a little entranceway before that, and then come at the drive-in window from the other direction, the exiting traffic would not be a problem because it's not stopped and waiting. All the stopped and waiting would be on the far side of Chickafill.
Okay. Let me mention that and see what we can do.
Bodos has done a nice job working with the traffic. It's a problem there and a problem down at Canes. But I think Bodos has made a good example of how to at least try to manage it from a private business ownership.
Right, but, may I chime in that I know that what Brian, I will piggyback onto what Brian said. Chick-fil-A has to be given kudos for the wonderful business model that they have created because of the pandemic. I think that maybe this traffic situation, hopefully, will be short-lived once we can all go back into a restaurant and sit and feel safe. So maybe we just all need to be patient. But maybe the police can monitor it a little bit, more frequently to make sure that there aren't any accidents waiting to happen. So that's just my 2 cents.
Nancy's got a good point. It may be that the county, I don't know what authority they have, but they may just need to block off that entrance for a time period,
Well, it's worth having the police talk to them a little bit, see it and have the police talk to them a little bit. Okay, I got it. I'll write it up and see how we can get it to Ned. You'll see a copy of what I've written before I send it in, okay?
You probably put that on the 29 corridor too and not Woodbrook. I
Yes,
would
yes,
think.
yeah. Mhm, mhm.
I'll be glad to call the police.
It'd be better if Ned called the police.
Well, that's why I bring it up here.
Yeah, yeah,
But
got it.
if, yep,
Okay, let's go on to the last one.
Hey, Marty, can we go back to that one?
Sure.
That management, number 8, the management of the stream in the swampy area. Whenever we get a heavy rain, it just backs up and the debris gets over the silk cloth and up on the hill, up on the hillside. And I don't know how the water is getting through underneath the road. It looks like the road's getting undercut by that, the water coming through there.
Where is that in your area, Martha?
It's, you know where they put in the new sewer access road off of Carsbrook or right off of Carsbrook?
yep.
It's along there. Our property abuts that down at the bottom. And whenever
Where
there's
is
a lot
it
of rain,
compared to Clark's Lane?
yeah, Clark Lane, Highview Lane.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's all coming from my yard. That's why it's on the list.
Okay, well,
Okay, we know. So, okay, we'll emphasize that as well, Marty.
thank you.
Okay, so now I can go down one more. This is Todd, we haven't heard from you. Anything want to change?
Well, I do have something I'd like to add possibly.
Sure.
This probably should really wait to form-based code, but I saw an interesting email next door about someone requesting more pedestrian bike paths in the area, particularly to the new grocery store that may be coming to Albemarle Square. And also extending the pedestrian path from Berkmar all the way to UVA's new center, but I understand that the road has to be built first.
So
She wants to extend,
yeah.
pardon me, from Berkmar to Commonwealth, to UVA, to the airport. She's got some ambitious goals.
So I put it on the 29 corridor. I hope that was all right.
Okay.
You see it?
Okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Just
Good.
maybe I should put, for example, to include, because it's more, I thought the ones that really fell in our area were these two.
Yes.
Specifically. Is that all right, Tom? You want me to expand that a little bit?
That is fine.
Okay. Yes.
Well, what is meant by southern end of Woodbrook to Albemarle Square? Where is that?
I just copied it. I'm not familiar enough. So Tom, do you have a sense?
Just a goal. It was just a goal that this person that stated it next door, and I thought it was an interesting thing that, because with the redevelopment of the area, form-based code be something to consider. I know there are some plans to do that, to include something like that with the change.
I think it's just improving the available like bike and pedestrian paths between our neighborhood and the Rio intersection, Audrey. It's probably what that is.
That's what
you
I
can-
think it is too, but some issues with that, whether it's desired by the Woodbrook community.
Is that something that's desired or not desired? I didn't catch what you said, Audrey.
I'm not sure, and that's why I bring it up. I'm not sure what the whole community would vote if they had a vote. There's some for and some against.
Yeah, but we're talking on 29, Audrey. I mean,
Oh, it's not coming, not the southern end of Woodbrook, the southern end of Idlewood Drive. That's why I wanted to know where this is.
oh yeah, that might be.
Tell me
There
how
is-
to clarify it.
Yeah.
So, how would you clarify it? Just
I mean, I brought up, I think in October, just that the path going all the way up to Target is great, but it just ends. It's not like I can go from, I can't, let's say I wanted to go to Riverside Medical or something. I can't do that by, without driving right now. Just as an example.
And you can't use sidewalks.
Yeah.
How about giving me some, so how would I clarify this? Because you've got me, I only drive, I don't.
Maybe Marty, they could email you some
Right,
language.
right, that's what I would. If you would help me and I'll get back and we'll be in touch, okay? So we don't hang on that, okay?
You ready for the 29 corridor businesses?
Yes, yeah. Mhm.
I think, and I was also going to bring up the Allen and Allen and Allen. If we look at number 5, that is really the entrance to the Rio Hill retail area. And I think we could add that there are deteriorating properties and then cite the Allen and Allen former office building. It is an appalling trash pit. It suggests that people are at least eating there on a regular basis and leaving their trash corner and into the private property. I think that would be good to.
Nancy, I think that property has been bought. I think I remember seeing something about a car wash going in there.
Yeah, I was just
That
going to say that. There's supposed to be a car wash going in there.
But in the short run, it's pretty awful looking. And the other thing that I would mention, Marty,
Yeah.
one of the things that is key to the entrance corridor is the role, help me out, Rachel, which committee is that? Which task force, which?
The architectural.
ARB, architectural review. I think, and I had suggested to Marty that maybe we have one of the commission members, the chair, come, because we've got 2 roles here. One is the role of ARB, how to apply the entrance corridor to form-based code. And the other is just the general 29 entrance corridor. And of course, the John Warner entrance corridor as well, but that's 29, so I leave that to someone else. But I think we need to let the ARB know of our concern, and I think we need to let Ned know, and I think we need to do something to communicate this. I mean, I'm great at writing resolutions, but
I wonder if it's worth taking a couple of pictures and attaching it.
I can do that tomorrow.
That I think would be more useful if you get a picture or 2 with,
And if one does it at lunchtime, you get the traffic back up on Chickafill at the same time.
Right. I mean, that I think is the best way to do it. I mean, we could say it, but a picture or 2 would really grab attention.
And the other small note I wanted to make was, poor Fashion Square Mall. I don't know if you all noticed, but Belk has filed Chapter 11.
Yeah. I'm not sure what that really means at the end of the day. I mean,
End of the day, what it means is that Chapter 11 is a reorganization bankruptcy as opposed to shut the doors, you're done. And so they will probably try to find ways to get out from under some debt, but they've been declining for a long time. And in this, it's pretty hard to see. I mean, Sears tried to get out of it and they're failing to get out of Chapter 11. So it's a difficult retail environment, to say the least.
right. Okay, well, I did note the ARB, and we will work on trying to get the ARB scheduled. I also have problems when I come down 29 and looking over to all the automobile sellers there with their supposed foliage in front, which doesn't hide anything. So I wonder what we're doing with all that. But okay, that's me. All right.
I
Let
have
me
my
go-
hand up.
Yo, I don't see you now because I've got the
Oh,
presentation.
okay. Yeah, I have my hand up. I'd like to know more about the car wash coming there to the Allen and Allen. Is that a by right development? Or I haven't heard about that before. I'm concerned about traffic with a car wash there and
I can try and bring more information back next time, but it was by right. It was a site plan. I just don't know where it is in the process, whether it was already approved or still under review. So I can follow up on that.
thank you.
Thanks. Okay, that's the last thing on our agenda is a schedule for the rest of the year. Rachel had put out a general schedule, so we meet on the fourth Thursday of the month, and we've been meeting at 6 o'clock. The first thing I did was I noticed we had and Nancy also noticed we had a November Thanksgiving meeting, and December was just 2 days before Christmas. So what I did was somewhat arbitrarily, I picked a Thursday sort of later in the month, because then we have a long way to January, and skip the November. So I combined November and December into one meeting. We did that this last year. I think that worked out. So this would be tentatively our meeting schedule. Would anybody like to comment? Have any problems?
Okay, I know I'm not part of the group, but I'm part of the group. If we're still doing Zoom meetings, then I have another meeting that same night that starts at 7. So maybe we could start earlier, maybe at 5:30 and be done before 7.
Who's talking? I'm sorry.
This is Carolyn.
Oh, Carolyn. Oh. Anybody else?
Yeah, this is Rick, and I would really prefer going the other direction, but with Carolyn's got a conflict, I'm not sure how that would work. While we were meeting remotely, the 6 o'clock just is a very inconvenient time, and I would much prefer to meet later. I'd like to meet at 7, but if we've got a conflicting meeting, I guess there's no particular harm in going earlier.
Oh, the only harm
Marty, there are two issues here. One, you talked about moving the start time for all.
Yes.
1 o'clock. Fine with that. And then the other issue is, Carolyn, are you saying on the 16th there is a conflict?
Just of December, yes. I mean, if you stay
So what we might look to do is look for the week prior.
The 9th?
No, I have a meeting that night as well. I'm sorry. The only day I would have available that in December would be the 22nd, the 28th. Yeah, the 22nd would be it probably.
Do we have, I mean, I hate to say this. I thought we ran a meeting with, I know I'm going to shoot myself in the foot without Carol in one meeting.
You can definitely do that. If that's okay with Rachel, that's definitely, I'm always here to help if I can.
Why don't we, Marty, why don't we hold this open? We're all supposed to be fully vaccinated by midsummer. So there's a possibility of in-person meetings. Perhaps we discuss this maybe in June.
Well, I still have the first couple of meetings at least. Can we try a couple at 7 then?
Sure.
So why don't we go at least through June at 7 and then we'll revisit again, okay?
Marty?
Yes.
Yeah, the only other thing that I would make a comment that December, let's hopefully, being idealistic, that the kids are back at school, that then we want to run into winter break.
Okay,
Okay, just to.
so we can
keep
play
in
that
mind.
by ear right now. So, but let's go through June. My problem, one reason I think 7 works a little bit better too is it gives Ned a chance. I have checked with Ned and he's okay with 7. You can see, I think it would give him a better chance to participate more fully as well. So let's just agree right now on 6 through June and then examine it again in June and we'll decide about December then. We'll have a better.
You mean 7?
7, excuse me. Yes, excuse me. 7. Is everybody all right with that?
Yes, February to June, 7 o'clock is good.
Okay. All right. With that, I'd like to thank Carolyn and Rachel. Rachel, as usual, and Carolyn kept us straight. Rachel did a great job as usual. Look forward to seeing you on February now, February 25th. So with that, somebody make a motion just to close the meeting?
Move to adjourn.
Okay. All in favor? Okay. So everybody stay safe and wear your masks because we're all going to be hopefully a lot safer by June. Okay, so take care then.
Okay.